Greetings, greetings, family. Welcome, welcome to the Sister Shanice Show platform. As you can see, I've got a very special guest in the house, and I'm really excited about interviewing our guest. His name is Balguy Deng, and what an incredible story he has to tell us as a people. So keep it locked. Don't go anywhere. You're in tune to the Sister Shanice platform. This is a platform that actually links us as Africans together wherever we are on the continent or in the diaspora. So very importantly, it's about bringing us together as a people in the spirit of oneness, in the spirit of peace, in the spirit of unity and prosperity from a Pan-African centered perspective. And what this platform does, it actually provides a space where we can educate each other and keep each other informed about what's happening, irrespective of where we are in the world. And so, as you join us, please do post in the chat. Let us have your views, thoughts, and opinions. Let us know where in the world you're actually viewing us from, because I like to know what the reach is of this particular platform. So as we bring us as Africans together from the continent, from the diaspora, from wherever we are, irrespective of race, religion, tribe, clan, nationality, or any other ism or schism that's been used to divide us, here we come together in the spirit of oneness. So thank you so, so much in advance for joining us today. Let's welcome our special guest, Balguy Deng. Greetings, greetings, my brother. How are you?
I'm doing well, my sister. Thank you for having me and for your incredible show. You've been always doing it to have the African enlightenment for the African people, not only here in diaspora, also at home. We need to give you credit and appreciation. It's not easy. I tell you, I've been in the field of activism for almost since 2000 here in the U.S., and I've been traveling also to Africa. It's not an easy thing to be active, to stay on top of issues of Africa and South Sudan and Sudan. It's not easy, and I can relate to what you are doing. I tell you, my sister, it takes heart, it takes commitment, it takes determination, and also love. If you don't love what you do, I don't think you're going to be doing this all day, but because you love what you do. And what you love is what actually your people will be always attractive to, and be a part of what you do, because it's something that talk about not only past, I talk about the present, I talk about the future of the young generation and the next direction what Africa is supposed to be, and also maintaining and keep the unity of people in diaspora and at home as well, as it was actually started in 1960s, that our destiny is the same destiny and our story is the same story, and so we have to work together and to accomplish what our aim are. And thank you so much for having me.
We thank you so, so much. Family, you're going to hear a lot from our brother Balguy, and he is an incredible man. He really is. And as I said, he has an amazing story to tell, so you need to stay gripped. So our brother Balguy Deng is a human rights activist, author. He was also a former enslaved child, and he's a primary goal now, however, is to turn that adversity into something positive for his country. So he is a primary presidential candidate for the nation of South Sudan. He's not a stranger to this platform. He has been on this platform before, and we are honored to have him back again. He's actually written a book in which, he puts his childhood memories of that legacy when he was enslaved and had to fight to become free again. And it's a story of resilience and determination. And it's one to encourage and inspire those who may find themselves in, a really awful, even war-torn situation that he was in. So he was born in 1980 in a Christian village. His childhood started off, really beautifully. He was the youngest of 13 children. And, he grew up in an idyllic kind of beautiful village setting where I suppose one of the main occupations was farming and the other cattle herding. And, you know, it was part of a beautiful family village setting. And then one fatal day, his idyllic lifestyle changed for the worse. My brother, Bol, please share with us what happened on that fatal day that changed your childhood forever.
Thank you, sister. My story it go back to the story of our African sisters and brothers who have been kidnapped for the longer centuries, go back to 7 centuries to 14th century. So this is not something new for any Black woman and man to go through what I went through. It's something that our ancestors went through. So it's been a journey of our people. So it was not a coincidence for me to being kidnapped when I was a young boy in 1987 in my village. Didn't know nothing about war in Sudan. Neither I know that Sudan would exist as a country. We didn't know what country is. You know, being raised in village, you always get occupied, being busy with your fellow citizen in the village and care about your animals. And that is the African way of life. Yes, I was kidnapped in my village as a young boy, and then I was taken to slavery with more than 700 kids.
Yeah.
Uh,
Tell us
the
about
mother
that day, please. Sorry to cut you, but tell us
that
about
day
that day.
that day it was a horrible day that never happened in anybody's life because it was a chaos day. It was a day that everybody left running from from so many directions. You don't know where you go to, and you have enemy that come and try to occupy the village, more than 300,000 with horseback and camels and donkeys and AK-47. We never seen this before.
So these were the
And
people who came and invaded your village. They came
that's
in
right.
on horseback, on camels, with AK-47 rifles, and people started running in all directions. And, you know, who were these people? Why did they come to your village?
These people, they were very much the Sudan Islamic regime militant wing called Janjaweed today. Now they call them Janjaweed. Back in the day, they called them Marhalin. Uh, these Marhalin Janjaweed today, who are fighting now against the government of Sudan, they have been living in Sudan for more. They've been living in Sudan for more than 200 years, and their job is to advance the Islamic and Arab agenda to wipe out the Africans, indigenous and land of Sudan. So they go from village to village, they go from home to home, and what they do is to kill everybody and take the young kid to brainwash them to put them in the army so they can send them back to fight their own citizen. And that have been the agenda. So most of us have been kidnapped and will try to be trained so we can become one of them to speak Arabic very well, to also being part of Islamic culture, also being dressing like Islamic dress. So we give up our Africanhood so we can become people that they can use for another mission that they are in. That was the reason. So that was very tragic situation. That all my children, my fellow citizens have died. At that war, actually, we lost about 2.5 million died in that tragic because it's been the longest war in Sudan since 1983 all the way to 2005. And we have about 3.5 or maybe 3,500 have been kidnapped in my village only from 1983 all the way to 2005 have been sold. A lot of them hand in North Africa. Some of them have been sold to Iraq. Some of them have sold to Libya, and they take through the desert of the Darfur area all the way to Libya, and then you end up in Mediterranean Sea, and you find yourself in Middle East.
Wow. You know, family, many of us see these videos and we, you know, see these long line of young people going through the desert, you know, individuals who may well have been victims like Gul was, where these militia groups came into his village, kidnapped people. They burned down the village as well, didn't they? Just to ensure that people couldn't return to their village. They burnt down the village, kidnapped the children, murdered the elders, many of them. And, you know, life just changed from that moment onwards. And I'm going to post a link in this below this video where people can actually listen to you tell the story of what happened that day in some detail. But, you know, you said that a line of 300 children or so, or no, 700 children or so, walked 7 days, barefoot through the bush and the hot sand, you know, to get to a particular destination. Where did these bandits take, you know, all you children, about 700 of you or so?
We marched to northern Sudan, western Sudan, actually, the region now called Dan. Dan is Dhein. Is the Dan actually now is a headquarter of the Janjaweeds. The Arabs Masseria called Rezegat, and is a headquarter of this Janjaweed now, and that we have been taken to. And then after that, we have been sold to their wealthy members who were waiting for labor works, a lot of them waiting for those who can also take care of some cattle that have been stolen away from our village. Because they stole cows from our village, and then they bring them to their home, and then these cows also, they ship them to Egypt, to other Arab nations, so for the food and for the food purposes in Africa, and also for the market purposes. And all those have been very much because they need meat, and the company need meat, and those meat our cows have to be taken away from us so they can use them for their own business in Middle East and around North Africa. And the Janjaweed are the merchants who are doing the work for the Arab leagues. And what Janjaweed always does, what they do is to do and they dare to work for the on behalf of Arab leagues, and whether they can take the children and sell them, or they can take the animal and sell them to the Arab League, or they can even take the gold and sell them to Arab League. Even this has been the works, and what they ask from these Arab League members, including Egypt, they need the gun, they need the support gun that they can use to terrorize the African. That's been going on for a long time, and Sudan government supporting that 100%. And the Sudan government also is a member of Arab League, and they're doing this dirty works. And the African Union are silent about it, never done anything about it. But we, the African citizens, suffer under this regime of Sudan, where we don't have a leader can speak on our behalf. And that has been the journey that Sudan war have been going on. It started in 1952 and end in 1972, and then it picked up again in 1983 all the way to 2005. That now we're gaining defense, give us a little bit peace now that we have South Sudan in 2011. So this is the longest war, and the war actually, the purpose and the reason of the war is people are resisting against slavery. It was not war that we are talking about equality and justice. It's not equality of justice. We just resisting against slavery. And our ancestors realized that the National Islamic Front of Sudan must be confronted by force. And that's why our struggle in Sudan is so different than other African struggle. The African continent struggle, you cannot compare to Sudanese African struggle. The Sudanese African struggle have to be answered through the armed struggle to fight back, because these Islamic authorities do not understand the language of human rights. Because in that culture, in that context, they don't believe in human rights. And for that reason, you cannot negotiate with them because they will not listen to you. First of all, you are nothing to them to negotiate with. Who are you to negotiate with them? If you are black, they consider you as a slave. In that term language, they call abid. Abid, it means slave. So when they see you, they see a slave. So the slave cannot sit down at the same table with you. Okay? That is the concept, and that the philosophy of Sudan Islamic regime. So our ancestors realized that they need to fight back. So I want to assure you, the only country in Africa, and if anybody out there can dispute this, please, my sister, let them write a comment, because we are talking the fact here. Not an African country within 44 countries today, and I will not even add up the North Africans. Not an African ever fought and took armed struggle to fight to defend themselves against slavery. A lot of these Europeans, they left peacefully protests throughout the Africans who colonized Africa. And a lot of them left peacefully and they walk away. They did not fight a war. It's not army that was trained by Ghanaian or by Nigerian or by Kenyan to fight back the enemy. No, not even in South Africa. Only South Sudan is the only fought the enemy doesn't look like them. Enemies, the different races that fought in Africa are South Sudan who fought Arab who don't look like Africans. And they fought because they want to be free from slavery. Okay, it was not about democracy. It was not freedom. It was occupation. It was colonization. It was to maintain slavery in Sudan. So when you heard about civil war, there's nothing called civil war in Sudan. It's a political correctness. What is going on in Sudan is Arab League want to occupy the heart of Africa, which is Sudan. And if they capture Sudan, they will capture East Africa. If they capture East Africa, they will capture the entire Africa continent. And Sudan was the aim. So when they fell to capture South Sudan, and South Sudan break away by fighting back. Now they have their own internal war now. Okay, so what I want to say is this. South Sudan is the only country who fought a different race, who doesn't look like Africans, who fought Arabs and agents to defend themselves to be free, and have a South Sudan that went to United Kingdom yesterday and beat Great Britain in basketball in United Kingdom. That's the South Sudan that we got. And so the pride of being Africans is something in us that Arab deny us our freedom to be free so we can show our talent to the world. Now today, South Sudan that broke away in 2011 is the only country in Africa representing Africa continent. Only continent, and it will go to Paris recently to represent the continent, the motherland, to see the greatness and the proudness and being African, what it means to them. It means a lot. But it was denied for more than 500 years by Islamic National Front of Sudan. And this is something Africans do not understand. And the African continent are blindly don't want to understand the history of Sudan. The history of Sudan is the history of the slavery that took place in 7th century, before even Europeans came to Africa in 14th century. So the question you have to ask yourself as an African, whether you live in Britain or you live anywhere in Africa, ask yourself a question. Who was a slave in African in 7th century before Europeans arrived in Africa? Who was doing slavery then? There were the Arabs, and there were the agents who actually shipped the African, and more African have been shipped to the Middle East, more than African shipped to the Europe. Are we talking about this? Nobody's talking about it. I tell you, some Africans can come and tell you, they can tell you so many historians, so many stories and how intelligent they are, but they fell miserably when it comes to the Arab slavery. And that's something that I cannot afford to lose that kind of fact. And thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. You know, and this is what we're doing. We're spotlighting the Arab enslavement, you said, started back in the 7th century, that most of us don't realize is still continuing until today. How you were kidnapped and 700 children were kidnapped from your village and walked, you know, how many hundreds of kilometers from your village to the north of Sudan, so that you could all be sold in small batches to different Arab families where you were enslaved is reminiscent of the story that we have been told about what happened supposedly to us, those of us who were in West Africa and were kidnapped and sold into slavery in the Caribbean. But that's only part of the story, part of our story, because there were millions more of us who lived in Europe and were captured from all over Britain, Ireland, Scotland, and other parts of Europe, and also sold into the Americas and the Caribbean. So we're very familiar, as you say, with the European story of enslavement, but less so familiar with, or less so, we don't talk about as much, this Arab enslavement, where it all started. And we even talk less about the fact that it is continuing until today. So that's why it's so important for us to have this conversation. You said a lot there, and you know, in what you said there, my beloved brother, what is clear to me is what you call the African Sudan struggle. Now, the African Sudanese struggle is different, you said, from the struggle that the rest of Africa is currently having today. The struggle that the rest of Africa is having today is a struggle for independence, a struggle for democracy, and a struggle to liberate themselves primarily from the control of Europeans. But the struggle in Sudan is the struggle to free the indigenous Africans from the continued enslavement that started in the 7th century and the threat of enslavement. And these people have been going from village to village to village for decades, or you can even go back, you know, for millenniums now, at kidnapping people and selling them into slavery. And all of this is facilitating the Arab expansion into Africa. And so that is, you know, something that needs to be looked at, needs to be highlighted. The fact that the Arab world is using Africans who look like us, but who have been radicalized in their minds into believing that they are superior, and that, you know, the indigenous Africans, because they're not Arabized, are a bit, you know, slaves, and, you know, not realizing that they're working for the Arabs, and, sorry about that, they're not realizing that they're working for the Arabs and expanding, excuse me, expanding the Arab world into Africa. You know, that is a very serious situation. And when we talk about the Arab world, I quickly looked it up and I saw that today the Arabs have no less than 22 countries: Algeria, Bahrain, Comoros, Djibouti, Egypt, Iraq, Jordan, Kuwait, Lebanon, Libya, Mauritania, Morocco, Oman, Palestine, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Somalia, Syria, Tunisia, the United Arab Emirates, Yemen, and now they're looking to take Sudan as well. And this is the extent to which the Arab world is expanding into Africa. And as you say, the rest of Africa is not talking about it, seems to be oblivious to what's going on, not understanding the war in Sudan is an anti-African war and genocide that is being committed against the indigenous African people by religious ideologicalized Africans and young soldiers who they kidnapped and indoctrinated with the Arab religion. This ever-expanding Arab world is a threat, you're showing us, not just to Sudan, but to the whole of Africa. Because today it's Sudan, tomorrow it's the rest of East Africa, then from West Africa it's Central African, Western Africa, and Southern Africa. So I thank you so much for this campaign that you are on to highlight what's going on in South Sudan. But I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the politics, but because maybe, you know, most of the listeners don't know who the leaders are in Sudan. We've heard about the Janjaweed militia group. Who are they answerable to? Give us a bit of an idea of the, first of all, the political dynamics. Who's the president? Where does he stand in all of this? What is he doing?
Thank you, my sister. You have said it all. You said all. I have to give you credit for your enlightenment for this issue, and thank you so much. Sudan, the leaders now, after the Sudanese people, by the way, come out in 2019, and actually very much did the big revolution to remove the worst regime ever been in the continent after Idi Amin, which is Omar al-Bashir. It was very much removed, and then the generals of Omar al-Bashir took advantage of the people of Sudan. And those are generals, General al-Burhan, which is also a member of Muslim Brotherhood. And you know, Muslim Brotherhood is the Islamic organization based in Egypt, headquartered in Egypt. And you have also Hameti Dagalo, which is also a member of Janjaweed, a former, we call it Marhalin, where actually I was kidnapped and taken to the headquarters where he lived basically now. That's where I was taken in his home when I was kidnapped in 1987. So these are the two generals actually work together. One was the president and one supposed to be the vice council of the leadership. Within a couple of months, there was a dispute between them because also Dagalu is interested to be the leader, and also Burhan do not want to give up the legacy of the Arab Islamic philosophy or fundamental agenda. They want to keep the same status quo that we are Arabs and we are superior and we are better. So this new Arab Janjaweed, which actually they call them also new Arabs, are also fighting to protect the Arabism. So you have two Arabs who are fighting over power. And let me tell you, in Sudan, only those who call themselves Arab, even they are light skin just like you, and they have been brainwashed, their brain have been dislocated to think that they are Arabs. And indeed, if that indoctrination went on for more than 500 years, 200 years, yes, you can believe that you're Arab, but your skin does not show that you're Arab. So these individuals who are very much represent 15% of the population when South Sudan even did not break away. So you have about 15% who call themselves Arab. And you had 85% who see themselves, some of them in between, and some of them truly indigenous Africans. So they're fighting over Arabism and Islamism who's supposed to control these African slaves, particularly majority of the Darfurian Africans, Nubian and Kordofan Africans, you have Blue Nile Africans, you have other people in East Sudan who call themselves Africans. And the only one region called North Sudan who call themselves Arabs, considered as Arab, called the border to Egypt. These are the ones fighting over power. And that's why it became a chaos. We have about 15,000 already died and 30,000 injured. We have about 11 million displaced internally, severely dying from starvation. We have about 8 million run away to neighbors countries, to Ethiopia, become a threat to Ethiopia and Chad and South Sudan and also in Egypt. So, and they're still fighting. The Sudan that they built, the ancestors built, not the African built it. African built it, but they took away from the Africans. And that Sudan that went on as they claimed that it was colonized by British and now become a ghost town. Have become a ghost town, have been teared down. There's no building in Khartoum right now while I'm talking to you right now. So nothing available in Sudan. There's not been electricity, there's not been internet, there's nothing at all. There's not even food. Okay? This is what they did. And now there's nowhere the war is going to end anytime soon, because these people who live in Africa, they never respect African leadership, whether it was IGAD, whether it was African Union. They have no respect for African Union. They're only loyal to the Arab leagues. Whatever the Arab master told them is what they can do. So now the allegiance is very much to Saudi Arabia, to United Emirates, to Egypt. If the no deal come from these countries, there's nothing war can stop. And that's why African Union and the East African region, they wash their hand out of this war in Sudan. Because how would you bring people that don't see you as a human being to negotiate? People that call you are Arabid, you are African, but you just Arabid. Recently, there was Egyptian leader went to the African Union, and meeting was organized in Nairobi by the government of Kenya. One of the Egyptian representatives called the people of Africa within Nairobi, called them Arabid, you just slave. Disrespecting African in Kenya and calling them a slave in Kenya. How would you tell me these people that are going to listen to African Union to bring them to the table? So there's no way that the war of Sudan is going to stop. And also, Burhan do not want to give up the pride and being the Arabness and Islamism and the greatest Muslim and the greatest Arab, who's the one carrying on the Arab vision more than Amity. Amity also telling them that, well, I am a new Arab, but I can represent the Arab interest more than you. So these are the Arab nations who are fighting over the land. And that is the situation of Sudan. And the United States and the European Union, those world leaders try to fix it. They will not fix it because, you know why? Also, these radical Islamists see European as the Christian nation. They have no business whatsoever to solve that problem. Only that problem can be solved by a Muslim like them. But it can be not solved by a Christian nation. So they have no respect also to Christian nation, who can come like United States and other British. They cannot solve that. So you have already these individuals who are anti-Jewish, who feel like the only way people can solve a problem, we need to team as our Arab nationalists and listen to our brothers. And the same brothers they're loyal to are the same brothers supply them with guns and ammunition to kill themselves. Now, United Emirates is supporting Houthi. And also, Burhan gets support from Egypt and the man is Arab nations. So all that gun coming from the Arab leagues to kill each other. The Africans have no business whatsoever what's going on in Sudan. In fact, Sudan is the land of Africa. And Sudan is the motherland even of the Africa continent. Because Sudan is the Kush.
Yes.
And the Kush is the Nubians.
Yes.
And Nubian is Ethiopia. So you cannot take this history and you're telling me Africa will survive. Africa cannot survive. So what we are fighting for here is to defend the African richness in Sudan. If we lose Sudan, even Sudan is not supposed to be Sudan. But they did it just to level African indigenous. That is a land that is still owned by black. It's not taken away yet from the black. What the meaning of Sudan is. But Sudan really is the name of a slave. A slave has been labeled. Sudan is not a good name for us as Africans. And that's why one of the reasons of my leadership and many others we are discussing about it is to change the name of Sudan, of South Sudan. We have to change the name. And this is what we are advocating to do it. To take our country back to where it's supposed to be. To take our people back where we're supposed to be. My sister, let me tell you, there's no way we can be afraid not to speak up to tell the truth to the world. Particularly our African in diaspora, you are the hope of the continent. You may not know it, but let me tell you, you are the hope. And let me give you a good example of this young South Sudanese basketball team. A lot of these young folks, they grew up in the United Kingdom, they grew up in America, they grew up in Australia, they grew up in Canada, and they went home to play for their country. They were not born in Africa, they were born in the West, here. And they took the talent back to help their continent. Now they're coming back with the talent. Today, while I'm talking, they're going to play against the United States, the USA, the first time in the history. for a country just got out from independence yesterday, playing against the USA today, representing Africa continent. So what I want to tell you, our people in diaspora, you are the hope of the continent. If you deny it, please let me be the messenger to tell you this and take my message very serious. I survived slavery. I did not give up. My brother was a slave. My mother was taken. My sister, a lot of them, some of them were taken. I was not only, I'm just a testimony of what happened to my family and my relatives. Not only that, I come from a lineage of slavery since 1800. My grandfather, his brother was kidnapped in 1882 and was taken to slave by the same Arab masters. I didn't see a white man in my village. No white people that I ever seen in my village. Only the Arab with horsebacks, with camels, with donkey. We never see anything called Europe in my village. And this has been going on over centuries, that my people become a victim of the Arabism and Islamism. That Africa need to wake up. If they want to protect Africa, they need to wake up. And you said something very important here. Who controls the African Union? The non-African is the one control African Union. Not African control African Union. The Egypt is the one control African Union. The Tunisia is the one control African Union. The Algeria is the one control African Union. So African Union is under Arab leagues. That's why African head of the state, they will never say nothing about slavery in Africa. They will never say anything about human trafficking. The reason the United Nations put out information warning African citizens in the continent, women and children, do not be deceived by employment. The Arab and Middle East agent and other African agent telling Africans, we have a job for you. And now when African women who desperate for a job, employment, they took up and give them a ticket. Only they buy them a ticket. As soon as they get there, they strip away their passport. And now they kill them and they sell their body part in the market. The kidney market is a big deal in North Africa. The kidney market is a big deal in Middle East. And now the young women that have been taken, lied to, that is going to give them a job or give her a job, now have been killed and their kidney have been sold millions in Middle East. This is United Nations put the information out to the African. No African head of the state ever come out and support the United Nations statement. And this is what African we're living today. And the African who are victims are the West Africans, are the East Africans, are the Southern African, are the Central African, are victimized by the North Africans. And the North Africans did not come to occupy the African to live peacefully. They're coming to occupy the African continent. And this is the reality. And let me take you back. That's why my leadership, I'm against what the Kwame Nkrumah and the generation did back in the day. Because what they did, if you see Kwame Nkrumah was lied to when he called for the African unity, the Egyptian president, what back in the day called said that and then Nasser. Nasser, when he saw this man called Kwame Nkrumah come along calling for African unity, you know what he did? He sent a national security of Egyptian national security to spy on Kwame Nkrumah and to become his wife. Kwame Nkrumah never married a Ghanaian woman, he married an Egyptian woman. And then Egyptian was sent by the president to spy to destroy the African unity that Kwame Nkrumah was calling for. Okay, not only that, let me tell you about what's going on recently with Ethiopia, because the war picked up from Ethiopia recently, and then now in Sudan. The war that was in Ethiopia, when Ethiopia was trying to build the dam to support their citizens so they can have electricity, have agricultural land, so Ethiopian 80 million can feed themselves. Egypt was against it, because Egypt wants water to go to Egypt. It doesn't want water to be used by Ethiopia, even though water belongs to Ethiopia. And actually create this chaos and civil war and supporting tribe in Ethiopia to divide themselves so they can kill one another. And because of that, they don't want Ethiopia to live for their richness and their culture and their water, to use it for their agriculture. They want water to go to Egypt only if you don't do it, because Egypt want to sell the water also to Middle East, because Middle East have no water. So they need to use that. Egypt have to use the water and tell Africa, you don't need to use that water. And water come all the way from Lake Victoria. Now they're using it, and no Africa ever said nothing about it because Egypt is in control of that water. My sister, thank you so much for having me. I will stop here.
Thank you so much. I mean, the plot thickens and deepens. It really does. Again, you've just said so much there. And, you know, you've just added layers on top of layers of the complex situation to highlight for us the level of complexity of the problems and the challenges facing us in Africa. And, you know, as you've been saying, whilst most of us have been focused on the war against the Europeans to take over control of West Africa, Southern Africa, etc., and all of the challenges and problems that that actually brings for the people of those regions, what we're losing sight of is this long, outstanding Arab war against the Africans, the expansion of the African League, the indoctrination of the Arab religion on Africans to the extent where they are armed and therefore will not even think twice about killing their own brothers who they don't see as Africans, and, you know, the extent to which they are against African unity. And you also said something just, I don't think I've heard anyone else say before. Basically, you were saying that Kwame Nkrumah's Egyptian wife was a spy. And she was a plant to destroy African unity. And she'd been sent by Egypt to do that. And you gave other examples, such as the dam that Ethiopia was trying to build and the backlash that they got from Egypt, etc. And so, you know, we can see that there is so much evidence against the Arab League to support what you're saying about them not wanting to come and live in peace with the other Africans. And so we need to start talking more about this. We need to start spotlighting what's going on in Sudan from that ethnic perspective. And of course, you know, let's not forget that the South Sudan region is awash with natural resources. It has a fertile land, it has gold, it has diamonds, it has petroleum, it has hardwoods, limestone, iron ore, copper, chromium, ore, zinc, tungsten, mica, silver, and so much more. And as you said, you know, that is the region of Kush. That is the region of our original motherland. That is the region where, to a large extent, humanity, you know, from there sprung the civilization that spread out across the world and civilized the whole of humanity. That is the region that still today has so much buried treasures in terms of our history that the Arab world would love to get hold of. And I agree, we need to change the name of that region. Would you call it Kush? If not, what other name would it be changed
Absolutely.
to?
Absolutely, not to be Kush. No, you have to go back to Kush. No Kush.
And is that just the South Sudan region or the whole of Sudan? Because Sudan has been split in two. South Sudan is a fairly new country. Sudan was divided between Sudan and South Sudan. So Kush, is that the whole of Sudan or just the South Sudan region?
Well, this is what happened, my sister. Thank you. Thank you for actually predicting what's supposed to be the next move for the name of South Sudan. South Sudan, when we got independent, we're supposed to be the foundation of the indigenous of Sudanese people. And the indigenous Sudanese people are still fighting today in Sudan. They want to be free like South Sudanese. Let me tell you, I'm not saying the South Sudanese are free as they should be, because the regime that leading South Sudanese now is also sympathize with the North Sudanese. And you want to pass down the agenda of the North Sudanese also in South Sudan. So we have a whole leadership who very much indoctrinated by the North Sudanese Arabs. So see the world in Arab view and Islamic view, not in African view. So we are fighting that, and that's why I become a candidate for that. Just leave that. But to come back to answer your question, we have three regions who's supposed to be a part of South Sudan, but Sudan denied. the Blue Nile, Nuba Mountain, and Abyei. These are the regions that fought and joined South Sudan hand in hand to fight back for more than 21 years. So when we got independent, they supposed us to vote for the referendum to see whether they will be a part of Sudan or they will be a part of South Sudan. 99% of these people want to be a part of South Sudan. But the regime that we have now failed that because this regime is very weak. He so much get intimidated from the North Sudanese generals. And that's why he gave up all that peace agreement was done in 2005 by the war leaders. So my job and our jobs is to make sure that we have to visit that kind of peace agreement in 2005 to make sure that this region have to vote South Sudan. And also will be a union of the Kush heritage, back again, African indigenous, coming back again to form the Kush. Sudan will not live with nothing, will live also with the North. So North cannot describe themselves as Kush. They already describe themselves as Arabs. Yeah. So the entire Kush anyway. So now they have to choose whether, because Sudan already, the big part is a part of South Sudan. So this is the union of Kush. So they have to decide whether they have to join us and respect our dignity as African and acknowledge this land is land of Africa, it's not a land of the Arabs. Or the challenge will still continue to make sure that they need to come to that senses. This land belongs to the African people. Right. So it will be there will be accommodated as long as they understand that they are in Sudan, but Sudan is not Sudan that Arab is Sudan that Africans. So what we are doing to make sure that we have to claim the Kush back have been destroyed by the same invaders who don't love us. We cannot keep that history. When they don't love us, they call us a beat. No way you cannot be a slave and carrying on the master ideology. It doesn't happen. You are not free yet. So you got to be free to have your own name. As long as Sudan is still carrying on the same agenda of the slave masters, that Sudan does not belong to us. So that's why we are coming together and find a way to have a different name. And a lot of people of South Sudan agree with us that this name has to be changed because we don't belong here. And there's no way we can be a member of Arab League. And this again, this Sudan has been a part of Arab League since 1950. Okay, have been a part of the Arab League during Arab League a long time ago. And now they're doing the same thing until these days. A member of Arab League. No, we don't want to be a member of Arab League. We want to be a member of Africa Union or Africa or IGAD. And also we make sure that you cannot have two membership. You cannot also eat in both hands. Today your right hand is with Arab League, your left hand with Africa Union. It shouldn't work like that way. And this is what North Africans are doing. They're eating in both hands. One hand with Arab League, one hand with Africa Union. And that's why our right, our freedom have been compromised by these who have two membership. Because we don't know what they are loyal to. We already know like you know, they are loyal to Arab Leagues. But okay, the question is, what about Africa who don't eat in both hands? Like Ghana, where can they go? What about other countries like Kenya? What about countries like Malawi or South Africa who don't have other membership to go to? So now they have been disadvantaged by these groups who have two memberships. So we want to make sure that again, I was watching your show, very beautiful show other day you put together, and I was watching it. One young man said that there's no way you can bring change if you cannot be in a position of power. And that is the fact we are talking about here. If you want to bring the change, you want to see that change, be the change that you want to see. Obama said it many times. Be the change that you see. Yes. You cannot let the change carry on by somebody never see the change. You have to be there, a product of the change. So what you and I are talking about here is something that we need to bring to the people of Africa by bringing the change that we see. And to do that, you got to be in a position of power to talk about the issues that we are talking about here. Because these issues that you and I are talking about, they are not in the table of African Union where they're supposed to be discussed. Right. Yeah. But nobody's bringing them to that discussion because more the African head of the state, a lot of them are afraid of the North African, more than they're afraid to European Union. But they're not telling you that. They can tell you European ideas. Let me tell you, my sister, no way you can fool African of 21st century These Africans, they have social media, they have technology, they actually live in the world. I was in Europe recently, I was in Switzerland. I met so many Africans there who live there and they go back home to support their countries. Angola, Malawi, Zambia. I mean, these people, they women and children, they go back and have their countries. When I met them, they say we are going back home to help. Okay, so you cannot fool these Africans any longer. They just need information to be shared with them, and they will go and they move on with that information. And that's what you are doing now, open your platform, is to bring information so the African can run away with it. And thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. I mean, and again, you're illustrating why platforms like this is just so, so important. Well, so that we can have this space where we can share information, critical information about what's happening on our motherland. Beloved Kush, as you say, you know, as a diaspora, as historians, as researchers, there are so many of our people that speak, you know, so lovingly about Kush, who, you know, spend an entire lifetime talking about its history, its greatness, its contribution to civilization. And, you know, it is the pride of Africa. But you are pointing out to us exactly what's happening in that region today. The pride of Africa is being stolen. It's being taken away by the Arabs and the Arab League, and in the most horrific way as well. The people are suffering. Millions have been displaced, hundreds of thousands of people murdered. And, you know, we have the leaders, or the so-called leaders in this region, who are under the control of the Arab League or fearful of the Arab League, and so are not doing the job of challenging them to take back control of their country. And the rest of Africa, you're pointing out, so busy, you know, trying to protect their own little nations, are losing sight of the bigger, you know, geopolitical problems and challenges facing the entirety of Africa. It certainly will be the problem facing the entirety of Africa if this problem isn't sorted out. And so, hence why, as you said, platforms like this are so important, because then we can bring the information to our people in the hope that our people will take the information and run away with it. So clearly, you know, what you're advocating, and I wholeheartedly stand with you and agree with you and support you in this, is that the name of Sudan needs to be changed back to Kush. And in so doing, reclaiming the African history, the African pride, and the African glory that comes with that region, to do away with the negative stereotyping and imagery that the Arabs have painted of Africans of that region, calling them abits, calling them slaves, treating them as slaves and abusing them in that way. Most of us, you know, would have thought that Arab slavery had ended, but clearly, family, I hope you're hearing, it has not ended at all. You know, we have the privilege of speaking to our guest here, human rights activist, author, former child slave, and a primary presidential candidate for the nation of South Sudan, none other than our brother, BOL GAI DENG. And you can get a copy of his book as well, family, and I'll put the link to his book under this video. It is entitled Global Leader Summit on Human Trafficking. And it's his story, okay, family, of what's going on in that region. Not only does he have a personal experience and a personal testimony of being a victim of the terror that has been inflicted on the people in that region, but he's a survivor of slavery, a survivor of being kidnapped and trafficked, and he's now coming back, family, to try and help others in that situation, and also, more importantly, to try and save our beloved country, Sudan, formerly known as Kush, for the Africans. I hope you can see, you know, the plan of the Arabs here in their efforts. And so we started off in the top of this segment of the conversation by focusing on the political leaders, the two political leaders that are fighting each other, both under the influence of the Arab League, and fighting each other for power, in the process totally destroying the country as well. and causing, you know, heinous crimes. I've just got a little something here that I want to bring to the attention of the listeners. And this is to do with the extent to which the civilians in the region are actually suffering. And this is a report by the aid agency Operation. They said that from January to March 2023, that's within 3 months, the UN mission in South Sudan actually documented 920 incidents of violence against civilians, during which 405 civilians were killed, 235 injured, 266 abducted, and 14 were subjected to conflict-related sexual violence. That was just over a 3-month period. And then between April and June, it's also documented a further 222 incidents of violence affecting 871 civilians, including 128 children, during which 395 children were killed, 281 injured, 166 abducted, and 92 subjected to conflict-related sexual violence. And, you know, as of August, 22 aid workers had been killed in the region as well. And according to the UN mission, South Sudan remains one of the most dangerous places for aid workers. This is the region of Sudan that we are talking about. This is the extent to which, family, citizens in that region are being impacted by the conflict that's going on. And that's only part of the problem in terms of the impact on civilians. You know, share with us what the situation is regarding aid reaching our people, the quality of life for those who have been displaced. Where have they ended up? How are they being housed? How are they accessing food and water? You know, tell us the situation, please, boy, well, about, you know, the citizens that have been impacted by this senseless war, an ongoing kidnapping and enslaving of our people for its mineral wealth, for its human organ parts, for human slaves, and, you know, also for the land, the cattle, and everything that is on the land. Tell us, please, how are people coping with this? Where are they ending up? What is the impact of all of this on ordinary people and ordinary lives?
You know, thank you very much. You know, the country, as you described very well, that the situation the country is going through right now, the humanitarian crisis, the civil war, and also the clan war after cleansing, that supported by the government itself. Government is the one actually supporting a tribals war, because the tribal rival between the vice president and the vice president, using the AFNITs, the vehicle to divide the people of South Sudan. In fact, people of South Sudan are not benefiting from that. That the leaders who are benefiting, because for the power sharing, because they're sharing the power. And now the country has been sanctioned internationally. Economically, the country is collapsed. Inflation in the country, $100 equal to 400,000, which ordinary citizen cannot afford to find or to have a food in the table. These are the issues affecting ordinary citizens of South Sudan. And this individual, of course, yeah, they have a mindset of the being anti-Black, anti-Africa. Even though they are Black, they don't work for Black because they are brainwashed, indoctrinated. You know, unfortunately, this the reality have been the culture of the African brothers and sisters who actually adapt other people's culture. They always think like master, and they do the master work. So what happened in South Sudan is that we have a masters in South Sudan pass it down their ideology to the leadership of South Sudan, and the leadership of South Sudan become entitled to their own citizens just to please their masters. And that's the culture. In fact, South Sudan, and they're now doing the same thing. They are very much doing destruction to the indigenous African because they don't see them as human beings, along they are serving their masters in Middle East interests, Arab League interests. So it go down and it passed down and deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's what today, what Sudanese people are in. And also try to change the culture of South Sudanese so they can speak Arabic very well. So also they can turn to be also another Islamic state in the East Africa. This is what the president now is advocating for. So they can have incredible number of Muslims in the country. So they can match the Christian in the country. So that the game is playing. In fact, these are the people deny to be a part of old Sudan, who's already declared to be 100% Islamic nation, Arab nation, ruled by Sharia law. These are the things we fight against. And also slavery that they don't want to talk about it. I'm advocating for slavery. Not only I was only slave, a lot of them, they have been silenced. Not to talk about their own stories. Because the government was anti. Anyone can speak about slavery. They want to hide it, put it under the rocket. They don't want to talk about it. If you talk about it, you will not get any popularity. You will not get support because they see slavery as a norm, is part of life in Sudan, in South Sudan. So why would you talk about it? So when I come to the West, I become advocating for this. That has to stop. But I didn't get any welcome, neither any leader in the Sudan that ever support me or in South Sudan ever support me and say, you know what, we are behind you, we need to stop it. No. I'm the one actually struggling by my own, writing the book about it, talk about it. No any government ever stood against it with me because I knew the government was actually pro-slavery. I was in UK last year, and I spoke in the Westminster. We have about 500 delegates come around the world, member of parliament, including the Africa Parliament, including the South Sudanese diplomat. So I spoke there and I said, when I tell the world that Sudan is a pro-slavery country, it's not anti-slavery country. Sudan is a pro-slavery and you cannot deny that. And South Sudan also is a pro-slavery country. So at least we need to change that kind of generation. We will actually maintain this slavery going on because it's a part of that culture, it's the norm, and they're pleasing the Arab masters to keep a status quo that being African, being a slave is okay. It's okay to be a slave. As long as you're African, it's okay to be a slave. You don't need to be free. You can be a slave in so many forms. You can work free, and somebody can hold you by giving you food. As long as you live in Arab home, and you can work for free, and you get rewarded by food to eat, it's okay. But you don't need to get paid because you cannot pay a slave. This is the culture that we have in the East African Sudan and South Sudan. So we need to break that, and that's why the leadership needed have to be voted in December this year, and this in December 2024. We are campaigning to make sure that we have to end slavery. My sister, let me conclude. There is no way, let me tell you this. We in the West here, Africa community and the African diaspora, we are against slavery 100%. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, I can go on and on. Marco Garvey, I can go on and on. Okay? In Africa, no leader ever condemned slavery at the head of the state in Africa. Have you ever heard this? No other head of state condemned slavery in Africa, even though slavery was condemned in America, it was condemned in British and abolished by British government. It was not condemned in Africa by the African leaders. Tell me one state in Africa ever condemned slavery. Tell me an African country in Africa ever banned slavery. Tell me one. Whether it was Africa, whether East Africa, whether South Africa, whether North Africa, whether even in East Africa, whether even in North Africa. No slavery never been condemned. That's why slavery is still going on until this day, because it was not condemned by our own head of the state. Who has authority in Africa supposed to condemn? It's the head of the state. If the head of state are silent by the Arab leagues, where can they condemn? The same head of the state in Africa are the one being told by the Arab League what to do and what to say and how to say it. And telling African Union, only your job to condemn the state of Israel if they fight against Palestinians, because we all have to unite to support Palestine against the Jews. That is what you do as an African. But you don't need to condemn slavery in your land. Condemn only. Everybody go aggression toward Palestinians. You Africans need to unite with us and let's do it together. But you have no right to condemn slavery that we are doing toward you. You have no right to condemn expansion of the Arabism toward North Africa, all the way to Somalia, all the way to Djibouti, all the way to Sudan, all the way to Burkina Faso, all the way to Mali, all the way to Ghana, all the way to Nigeria, as Boko Haram is still doing their mission, killing the Christian. Okay, this is the national agenda of the Arabic, and they have so many money. They put money behind this. They put so many resources on this, so they can clear out the Africa continent. And also the wealthy Arab are moving in to buy land. The acres, million acres in Ethiopia, million acres in Kenya, million acres in Sudan, and they keep moving and moving. So this is the situation our people are in. And there's no question in my mind what you are saying. Suffering, the African women and children are paying a big price on this. And they don't see the solution. That's why a lot of them are running away to the European Union to find a job. And that's why you see them handing up in Europe and find a job and through Mediterranean Sea, because they have been neglected by their own leaders. Because job employees in Africa is not available for the youth. Even if you go to university in Africa, in Kenya or anywhere in Africa, you graduate, you have no jobs. In South Sudan, 99, 95% very much have no jobs in South Sudan. Only few, 5% are the one employed by the government only. South Sudan, since we got independent, we didn't have manufacturers in the country. We didn't have agriculture in the country. So the country only, if you are relative to the government elite, they are the one that can employ you in the office of the government. The only job they have in Sudan, South Sudan, is only government jobs. There are no other jobs. And those governments have been occupied by the relative of the president. So the people of South are dying now of starvation. According to United Nations, 7.8 million, they may die for severe starvation this year. This year. And this is the crisis we're living in South Sudan. And the Sudan also add above that crisis of Sudan today. And most of them running to South Sudan where the country with nothing to welcome them or feed them. So we have a lot to do, and we have so much to do. And for us to do this, we need to address the root cause. A lot of Africans are singing a song of freedom and liberation, and I'm African this, I'm Pan-Africanism, and you have no idea the root cause of your African problem. You actually are part of the problem. And I tell you, my sister, I travel around the world. I've been in America. I've been in Black community in America. And I've been around the world. And guess what? I never seen anyone talk about this subject you and I talking about. This subject has been denied totally by our own Africans who have been brainwashed, who have been told that being a Muslim is okay. You don't need to talk about being a Muslim. You have to talk about the freedom also of your people who have been enslaved by people you share the faith with. You telling me I'm a Christian, I can criticize the Christian world who enslaved my people, but you cannot criticize the Arab world who are you sharing the faith with, who coming to kidnap me in my village, and you say as a Muslim African is okay? No, it's not okay. You got to let them know, look, I love your religion, I love your culture, I love your, but stop kidnapping my children, people in my community that I share the faith with you. But the Muslim African have been the tool of the Arab League to destroy that continent.
So true. You put it so well, my brother, Bol. The African who has been converted to Islam is being used as the tool to continue the enslavement of his African brothers, and he's not speaking up and speaking out against it. So there are those Africans who have been converted who now feel superior to their indigenous brothers, who are out there committing the genocide. against their own people. And there are those Africans who have been converted, who know what's happening, probably more so than the Christian world know what's happening, and are saying nothing and are doing nothing about it. Yet they profess to be Muslims. And so we need to spotlight this. We need to highlight, what's going on. And as you say, we need to be having this conversation. They can't say or claim to be pro-Islam and not talk about the enslavement of the Africans in South Sudan. And as for the other African leaders who probably are very aware of what's going on in Sudan and ignoring it, there needs to be a campaign to get these African leaders to put this matter on the agenda and to condemn what's actually going on in South Sudan and to support the people's movement to change the name of South Sudan to Kush so that it can reclaim that African pride and that African glory. And I say here, that I stand, and all of my platform audience members who are of like-minded to myself, stand with the people, the indigenous people of Sudan, and we condemn the Arabised Africans who think that they're superior to the rest of Africans and are choosing to go and hunt our people down in their villages, slaughter them, murder them, and take over their land for the Arab world. This is atrocious. This is really awful. There is a major crisis going on in Sudan right now, and we all have a duty and a responsibility to do something about it. Let's all put this matter on our agendas for our community organizations, our national and international organizations, so that we can start talking about the real challenges and the real problems of Sudan. It is gross. The Arab world is using their religion to indoctrinate the minds of Africans from when they're young to see themselves not as Africans, but as Arabs. And then to take the loyalty of those indoctrinated Africans away from their own people towards the Arab world. And then the Arab world has even a budget to finance projects and initiatives in Arab African countries, which is all part of their bigger agenda, which is to Arabize and to take over countries in Africa. We're in a serious situation, people, a serious situation. I read out a little while ago, all the countries so far that the Arab world are claiming as their own, which was originally African land, that the Arab, so-called Arabs, which are just mixed race people, have taken over away from the African, not peacefully, but through war and genocide and enslavement. We can no longer allow this to continue. We have to talk about it. This is a region that is so rich with history. They are trying to claim it in the same way that the Israelis claimed Jerusalem and are trying to claim the history of that region for themselves. The Arab world in the north of Africa are trying to claim Sudan so that they can claim the history of that part of the world as well. But if we change that name to Kush, which means black, there's no way that they would be able to lay claim on that part of the world. Brother Boyle, it's heart-wrenching. It really is. Now, let's have a little bit of a conversation about the way forward and how, what the solution is. We've talked partly about the solution, which is about highlighting and making people more aware of what's going on in the region, changing the name from Sudan to Kush, putting pressure on the African Union to put this on their agenda and to put pressure on those countries that claim to be part of the African Union but are more in cahoots with the Arab world against Africa than they are in support of Africa, and for us to see it and the rest of the world to see it for what it is. We've got leaders who are fighting for political power and don't seem to have the interest of the indigenous people at heart at all. Neither of them seem to have the interest. They're both, exercising policies which is leading to genocide and crimes against humanity. The numbers of people displaced, the numbers of people who have been murdered, the extent of the criminal activities that these leaders have been engaged in, is absolutely dreadful in a modern world. We need to talk about it. My brother, in terms of the political leadership, in terms of the way forward, what's the best way forward?
Thank you. Thank you, my sister. First of all, let me elaborate a little bit before I go for the solution. And now to elaborate issues that are facing Africa right now. We've been talking about Western colonization for the longest 200 years. We exhausted that topic. We understand that, in fact, that our people, majority of them here in America, we have about 4.5 million Africans, Americans, who very much opportunity, leadership in Congress and Senate, I can go on in business, which in some way we have opportunity to make change if we want to. Also in Great Britain, also we have African that, yes, they have a voice to speak up and they still live. And if you live in UK, you can tell them exactly, you can criticize the system. You will not be put to death. You will not be put in jail. You will not die because it's a democratic society where you can exercise your rights as a black man feel discriminated. In case of this war that we're talking about here is not available. That tool is not available. Because first of all, for being recognized to have a voice, somebody has to consider you are a human being like him or like her. But when you have a society who have been indoctrinated that as soon as you see a black man or black woman, you have seen a slave, non-human, it's very dangerous to approach and convince that person to have a negotiation or dialogue with. And that is the culture of the Arabism and Islamism. North African that you're seeing that in the social media or maybe in TV and media, you're seeing only the Arab agent face in anything that they do, whether in member of parliament, whether in the leadership. It's not because we don't have African there. African have been denied not to have access to a media. We have African in southern Egypt who are very much still exist as indigenous, who have been denied right to say anything or neither to appear anywhere in public service. The same thing in Tunisia. We have Africans who are there, have been denied and pushed away from the town, and they live outside of the capital city. The same thing in Algeria, the same thing in Morocco. So these countries, you see that they are not African. We did not run out the African indigenous yet, but they are not being shown in public. After the ancestors have been enslaved and some of them left, they're still facing a lot of aggression and discrimination. And the most dangerous is slavery when you dislocate a human being by actually forgetting her language or his language. So you got these African now don't actually forget their languages and they speak Arabic. That most of you cannot have access to talk to them. What can you tell to them? They're African just like you and I. Okay, what language can they share with you their stories? That is the most difficult problem that they are facing right now, because if you contact them, they have a lot to share with you, but they don't speak English. There's something that this is the Arab colonization. They dislocate you from your mother community, and then when you try to communicate, you have no access to talk to one another. So you have already created an enemy among these Africans themselves. There's something that And if you go to West Africa, you have about 14 countries, French-speaking language, French speakers, who very much does not understand the English. How would you communicate and convey the message to them? There's something also to those who speak Portuguese or speak maybe Spanish in Africa. So we have all these colonials come to the continent, or maybe, and we're actually better off because English made us to communicate at this point, to get our message across. But how would you approach 99 Sudanese who have been dislocated from their identity and their languages? And they look been black until they turn blue. One time, Uganda president said, these Sudanese are not only black, they are blue. Because they're black until they turn blue. So how would you try to capture the mind of these people and take them to Arab League? What are they going to do there? Why are you wasting their life and their time? When they're supposed to be their brothers and sisters, so they can sing in the same song of their people. So this is the issue that African Union is not talking about. And they call themselves African Union. Okay? So the bigger problem is in African Union that you need a young leaders who can stand up and rise and be a part of the leadership in Africa. You don't need to be born in Africa to be a leader. You can be here in diaspora, like me, and go back and have your content. Because you have a better view how to see the world. Now you have a world view. You can bring the change better than those who are military coups. Military coups have no idea what the world actually look like. They're just doing it for the ethnic reason or maybe reason that, and the coups. And that's it, generals. And by the way, those generals, okay, who would they train for? What war do African generals ever fought? Did they fight with France? Did they fight with US or UK? No African soldier ever fought with all these Western wars. So what made you general anyway? Because you made general because you were killing your own tribe that you're against. You're killing Africans, so you get promoted by killing other Africans. That general is a meaningless. When you kill an African tribe to become a general is meaningless because you never fought a national war anyway. The people that I can say that they fought a national war and now they are not going, it's the South Sudanese fought a national war because South Sudan was fighting 27 countries, Arab nations, supporting the Arab minority tribe in Sudan, 15%, and get all this Middle East support and Gulf countries support and all this support. And South Sudanese stood tall, rebel, to fight them. So the African soldiers, who they fought? Why they become a general anyway? So this is the question we need to ask ourselves. So we were killing our citizens. That's why you see the United Nations pouring to Africa to protect African women and children from these generals, African, so-called African generals. The United Nations peacekeepers, they were not supposed to be in Africa in the first place. Who they protecting? The African general was protecting African people. Okay? So this is the hard topic we need to discuss. Let's go back to what we're trying to achieve here. I think in order to hand the war in Sudan, you got to have a good leadership in South Sudan. Good leadership can advocate to hand the war in Sudan. And that leadership must get support from the African IGAD and Union. And to push this general to step aside and let the people of Sudan decide their future. And that could not be done by negotiation in the table. You have to send in the military to disarm these two generals. But you can do that by having the African Union also international support. You are the United Nations, you have all these war leaders, you got all these, and let you make sure that you are the team lead to hand the war in Sudan. And South Sudan will be in that position to make that happen. If we have this election coming up in December 2024, South Sudan will have a new leadership that is going to hand the war in Sudan. And we will ask the international community to support us because this is an African issue. It may have been taken to be an Arab issue. It's not an Arab issue. It's an African issue. We should not give Arab League any space in Africa to discuss an African issues in Africa in the first place. Let them discuss the Arab issues. And South Sudan is kind of can take that lead. So our job is to get support internationally. If the African organization, and this is the problem we are facing as African revolutionists or African organization of Africa think tank. What we are facing, we don't get support from our own fellow patriots. Financially, it's difficult. But if you see all this society, Asian, European, everybody, they come together and put their hand together to support what they see to be the good cause. But in Africa, we don't do that. You see, brother who try to struggle to bring the hope to their citizens, you don't support the money, the financial behind. If you cannot support each other financially, you cannot achieve nothing. And that has been the difficult of African revolution, that a lot of them failed because they didn't get support financially from African citizens, neither African patriot, African organization. No one can put their hand because African citizens don't support each other when it comes to financial support. And that's the facts. And the African leaders today, if there are war in Sudan, who's talking about humanitarian? Is the UN. Where's the African Union section of humanitarian? Is the other organization. They're supposed to have also to rescue the country that they belong. European Union, if you see the European Union, they always support Europe issues, because if the one Europe at war, all of them at war. If you attack one European, you attack all of them. So what is the slogan of Africans? If you attack one of them, you attack us all. Where is it? Okay, where is the humanitarians agencies by African Union? When there's a war in Sudan, they can drop food to the women and children of that African women and children. Where is it? So this is the empty African Union who does not support people in humanitarian wise, in medical wise, in health wise, is meaningless. And who is doing it? It's the people that are part of the union who don't love us. And those are the Arab League who are in the North Africa. So Africa need to come out and be the master of their own destiny. And we are not doing that. We talk big. We talk nice. We have this comfortable tongue of revolution. We're going to do this. But in the end, we don't support each other financially. You cannot, there's no any movement can be successful without financial support. No way. And that's why Africans come short. And that's why, and all of the African Union leaders, they don't support each other. All of them, if you see them, a lot of these, everybody's worried about his own life. Everybody's worried about his own position. If you go to Africa, they don't talk about global issues. They talk about internal issues. You know, the tribe of Zulu want to do something to the tribe of Zungo and tribe of whatever you call it, Ebola, whatever, all this, and Denka and Nuer and Kukuyo and all this Bantu, all this nonsense. There's nothing behind the tribe. How can you be a leader? You still consider yourself as a tribal leader. And instead to be a national leader. And instead to be an African leader. So we need to train our young people to think beyond belong to tribe. And belong to this beauty African community, the diaspora continent. And think like you are the owner of Africa. And you think that Africa is in you and you are in that Africa. And instead for you being a traitor to that African, be the lover to that African. So what we have now, we don't have that kind of leaders yet. Until we produce leaders that love Africa, and love Africa, see whether they live in diaspora, whether they live in Jamaica, that they love. Also, I'm not saying this to be against other race. I'm saying this just to know that loving your citizen and love others, humanity, is nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that love yourself and do a good thing to yourself, and instead let someone take care of your mom and dad and sisters, then, because you bullied to your sisters, you bullied to your mothers. Who's supposed to be the leader of the mother? Is you. But today, the African leadership have no character of being a leader or father of the African continent. A lot of them are sell out. They want to sell African and at a last price because they want to protect that seat. And because it's about seat, it's not about the people. It's not about, and I was talking to one of the guys recently. I told them, an African leadership, African head of the state, wherever they may be, their job is not to create the job opportunity to the young people. Their job was just for them to lead, and they don't care. They don't care what the citizens can eat. They don't care what they will go to school to. As long as a leader, that would matter to him. We don't need this kind of Africa. We need Africa that can compare and say, I'm going to create the jobs. I'm going to do this to you. But also, we don't need Africa that isolated in the world when we go and boodle ourselves and kill ourselves. And this is what's going on in Africa we see today. You see genocide, mass grave, people are sold out, and a lot of people are frustrated, they run away, then they get trapped by this North African, and nobody says anything about it. So this, I think, solution I have, we need to support humanitarian process, and most important, let's have a heart of humanity. Instead of Western or the world telling us about humanity, to define humanity for us, we should also consider humanity is the most important thing. And we don't talk about humanity. And these dictators of Africa, they are not willing to actually consider humanity yet, humanity of their own citizens. So let's put humanity first, and let's move forward by supporting humanity in Africa. Supporting humanity comes with humanitarian. Support of humanity comes with good education. Support of humanity comes with good health. The support of humanity, you'll be able to put humanitarian to those who are, maybe they may go without food in the table. So humanity also will let you as African open the borders so they can have a movement of travel among you like European does. European always have a freedom movement. You can be in Germany, you can walk in Holland, you can walk. They do that, but in Africa you cannot do that. Africa, you are Ghanaian, you will be discriminated to go to Kenya. If you Nigeria, you will be killed in South Africa because South African don't want you there. Recently, last couple of years, you have saw Nigerian African were killed by South African citizens because they say we don't want you here. Because they see Nigeria as diaspora, they are not African, and they should not be in South Africa. Well, Africa is supposed to live anywhere in Africa. Not Africans should be discriminated if we go to other African countries. It should not happen. We should move as brothers and sisters. And that have to be discussed within the union. And I want to tell you this, my sister. With the mindset and trend that I've been doing this more than 20 years in diaspora. Now is the time for us to go back to the continent and discuss these issues. But we cannot succeed if our diaspora are not stepping up to support the continent. Because you are the hope. The reason we are doing this is because we need your talent. The reason we are doing this is because we need your braveness, because you are very brave. You are not afraid to tell the truth. And you diaspora community, you are not afraid. I know this because I live in diaspora for almost 20 years. I know diaspora African, they are most brave African. Take this, my sister, please don't lose it. Don't throw it away. Don't put it in trash can. Take it from me. Diaspora community, they are very enlightened, very educated, got a lot of research, got a lot of information, and they know what to do now with that information. The Africans are still living in darkness. Information is difficult to be passed on in Africa. At least social media now is on. But somehow the leaders of Africa are still denying Africa not to have access to information for the media, for their own power purposes, to still contain and control Africa. The information has been actually denied. Even the Facebook sometimes gets shut down from particular countries where there's election. They shut down the Facebook. They shut down the WhatsApp. they call Chinese companies and companies come like Russia to come and shut down the networks. The freedom world like UK will not do that in Africa. But these Chinese communists who are associated with dictators of Africa, they want to shut down the networks so they can favor the dictators to remain to work with Chinese interests. Chinese now are another phase of African colonialists in Africa. These are new colonialists now are Chinese. And let me make this very clear to everybody here. You talk about Europe, you talk about Arab. Now we have Chinese above the Arab now in Africa. We have also Russia coming in. What do Russia support? Is anti-humanitarian, anti-humanity. Because it's bloody nations. We had enough blood in Africa. Why do we need to associate people who want to bring more blood in Africa? Do we need blood in Africa? We want to have enough. So we bring in China in who don't care about humanity. We bring Russia in who don't care about humanity. And we actually, what do we have Islamics who don't care about humanity? So, and now you're telling me that, okay, they're supporting me to kill my mothers and my sisters so I can be a general to kill African. And that the relation is a co-relation that we need in Africa. That the French we need in Africa. So these are the things that are taking place, my sister. No way that African ought to have blood, 400 years of slavery, it has been bloody. Now we have another new wave of blood by having Chinese and Russia and Islamists, and now we're actually in trouble. So we need to wake up and have a good leadership who can stand tall enough, and no other people can speak highly about what is right. Only generation of Martin Luther King, generation of Marco Garvey, those who have got knowledge in this continent and this part of the world to go and save and rescue their brothers and sisters from blindly leaders of Africa who want to sell out the continent for their own enrichment and their own positions and so on. But I'm not afraid because I knew what God is using me for. Using me for my people. I wouldn't run away a couple of years ago to come to this country. I never heard of USA in my life. Neither my mom talk about it, neither my dad. There's nothing called America that I ever heard in my village. Somehow, miracle happens. I was taken, never known Sudan, never known African, never known even European world or worldwide or US. Somehow I end up in America. Don't know how to speak English either. When I got to this, I don't know how to speak English. I learned it here. I went to school here, I learned here, and now I feel, you know what, God, I want to go back to serve my people. Think about that. All those miracles. It can turn to something good. And that good could be good for the humanity. If we love the continent, we love our people, let's love them, and let's do what we love. And I thank you so much.
We thank you so much, beloved BOL. I mean, once you arrived in America, you could have put your past behind you. You could have turned your back on your people. You could have decided, well, I'm okay now. I'm going to start my new family and I'm going to forget about the problems and the challenges back home. But no, you've seen this move to America, this miracle that brought you to America as an opportunity for you now to be one of the voices of the diaspora. You said, the voices of the diaspora is critical in trying to address the problems of Sudan, because the diaspora are not afraid to speak out. And here you are in the diaspora, beloved, speaking out on behalf of your country. And you also let us know that, a lot of our people in the villages in Africa don't have access to the information that we have access to. They live in a silo. They live in a world where, from one day to the next, the sun goes up, the sun goes down. They look after their herds. They do their agriculture. They tell the stories around the fire, and they're cut off from the rest of the world. totally oblivious to the fact that there are militia groups out there who are coming, you know, to take their land, to slaughter their people and to change their life forever. Totally oblivious to the expansion of the Arab world, which is intended to take over their land. Totally oblivious to the indoctrination that's going to follow, to give them a mindset that would make them hate their own. You see, but we can see the bigger picture because we have access to this information. And somehow we've got to get this information to our people so that they know exactly what's going on during these times. And so in terms of the solution to the problem, we are all part of the solution. Those of us who love Africa, those of us who love humanity, those of us who want to see Africa prosper, those of us who want to see Africa great again, we all have a duty and a responsibility to do whatever we can with whatever skills we have to try and get a new message to our people, all of our people, even the Arabized ones, to wake them up and realize that they are being used to abuse their own people. And somehow, you know, we've got to turn them around and away from, you know, the spell that the Arabs have them under. And we need to do this in our families where there are Arab members within our community, where there are Arab members, you know, in our nations. We've got to not be afraid, as you say, and speak up and speak out about what's happening. And also to be mindful that, you know, others may come, like the Chinese and others may come to our lands as liberators, but they are really the new oppressors because they don't have a love for humanity or for Africa either. We are the ones that have got to show each other love. We are the ones that have got to show each other humanity. We are the ones who are going to have to build the networks and the organizations so that the information can flow across the continent. And we are the ones that are going to have to do the brainwashing because, you know, right now, our continent is being sold by misleaders. And these misleaders are allowing others to come in and just loot our country. Our country is naturally rich with resources, but no one's defending the country. No one is taking care of those resources at the moment. And, you know, even though individual countries have their struggles, they still need to raise their head up and see the bigger geopolitical challenges that face the entire continent. I mean, as a final question, my brother, because we are 10 minutes away from the top of the second hour now, so we're closing down. And thank you for those solutions, those ideas of the solutions and for making us aware that we are part of the solution as well and what we need to do. Are there any African leaders that you can think of right now who you think could have a voice in the midst of all of these misleaders and the misinformation and the looting and the genocide and the wars and the colonialism and the fight for freedom, the fight for emancipation and everything that all of Africa is bogged down in fighting against, you know, and blinded by to a large extent? Are there any enlightened leaders that you can think of right now that maybe we should be appealing to put Sudan on the agenda? And if so, you know, which leader would that be?
Thank you, sister. This is a great question, to be honest. I want to thank you for all those incredible questions. Ask me, you've been asking me, but let me tell you, that question is very tough to be answered because I don't think that there's any leader in Africa today know what we're talking about it in the state level. A lot of African leaders are very blindly, totally. I'm sorry that the reality is the reality. I tell you, Julius Nyerere back in the day, I would say that I can admire him to be a right leader at the time. David Konde in Zambia, those who passed down the leadership in the state, putting the ego first. Also maybe Martin Luther, maybe Mandela, man who led for 4 years and let it go. These are the Africans that I give them credit in their grave and give them appreciation. But at this time, you and I living, I don't see any leader that I can recommend that is the right leader that can be talking to or to do anything concerning what's going on in Sudan. William Ruto was trying to do something about it, but William Ruto also faced so many challenges recently. Ruto was trying to take the lead, but also we got attacked by the Sudanese who don't want Africa to take apart what's going on in Sudan. I told you before that they don't see Ruto in that position as someone can bring a solution. Because I told you so many times, you know, when you get indoctrinated and brainwashed mentally, as a generation after generation, your ancestors told you that black man, there's nothing good about the black man or nothing good about black country or Africa country. And that it became a life. This is what Sudanese are. Sudanese Arab, you can see them, they are light skinned, but they are the most dangerous Arabs. Let me repeat that again. The Sudanese Arab Muslims are the most dangerous. And they are a threat to the entire African unity and the African way of life. They will not listen to anything come from an African man. That's why what we did was, what our ancestors did is to force them by force. The only language they understand is the language of gun. If you don't have weapon in your hand, you cannot negotiate with you. They believe in blood. They are the blood suckers. That's what they live for. Because their religion, indoctrination, taught them that way. So when William Ruto was trying to come in, and his name was William, there's, oh, that guy is infidel. He's a Christian infidel. How can infidel come to our affairs as a Muslim to say a word on that? That's why William Ruto was attacked from left and right, and then he backed down. Because William Ruto was trying to lead the African Union, and they also, the IGAD, the East African region, to solve the problem of Sudan. That didn't happen. And that's why, to this point, all African leaders realize Sudan is not an African country we should not have business with. The only leader who was supposed to take the leader was the South Sudan leader. By South Sudan leader, because he's the country that broke away from the Sudan in 2011, Salva Kiir. By Salva Kiir also is a puppet. He want to take side to stand with his former master, Al-Burhan. Because, you see, when you train a dog always, it will follow the master. So Salva Kiir was trained by this National Islamic Front. Even now, he calls himself Christian, whatever he is. But his job to protect their interests in South Sudan. So he cannot take the lead. Uganda, on the other hand, cannot take the lead. So at this time, there's no African leader neither. The West Africa would have their own challenges with the military coups of the generals in Niger and Burkina Faso and Mali and all. So they have their own problems. South Africa, on the other hand, have no even business in what's going on in East Africa. The North Africa was fueling the war with the Arab League. You've got the Central African Republic, Central African region have nothing to do with this. So there's no leader in Africa can stand up to do this in Sudan, have left to the Arab Leagues and the world to see what they can do. But the only hope, and I know that they're not going to have a peace negotiation because they want to win. Every side want to win. The Brown want to win the war in the battlefield because to keep its friendliness as the one that ruled Sudan for more than 500 years. You got a new wave of Arabs by Tidogolo who want to make his connection with the Arab Leagues to be the new person that can do a better job for the Arab interests. So they are fighting who's supposed to be a good who can be a good slave that can serve Arab interests better. So this is the situation that Sudan is in. Both are they're fighting for Arab interests, they're fighting for Islamic interests. Both of them, they're shouting, God is great in this side. Other side say God is great. So you never know who God is better than other God. And this is the same God they worship. So they are very confused. Indoctrinated so bad for too long. So many generations went through by. And so many generations enslaved South Sudanese. And so many generations fought South Sudanese generation. So this is a new thing. It's something that lifted for a long time. Sudan has been known as a country of war. Sudan has been in peace. Sudan has been at war, and they never been changed from Kush to Sudan. Have been at war. And there have been peace in Sudan. When they come and change the name Kush, it's still at war. Name it from Nubia, it's still at war. So there's no way you can expect peace in Sudan until the South Sudan new way of leadership. And I believe my leadership can do better than this leadership we have now. It's the only solution that I can see as alternative. Otherwise, Sudan will be breaking apart, and all of them, they will live as refugees in the neighbors countries, and it will not be a solution. And these two, they will be fighting back and forth because they're getting support from the Arab League. That is my conclusion to you, the answer I can give you. But there's no African leadership ahead of the state that I can recommend at this point to step up. Even the United States realize that there's nothing they can do about it. U.S. was trying, and with United Emirates, with Saudi Arabia, they could not bring the solution because even the Sudanese Islamists do not respect America. They see America as Zionist country. They see America as the infidel country. There's no way they can respect America. That's why you see 9/11 was planned inside Sudan. Those who attack America, they were in Sudan in 2021.
And I think
Osama bin Laden was always in Sudan to organize how you can attack America in 9/11. So you can see the deep hate of these Sudanese toward non-Muslim. Whether they were Western world, whether the Africa, they have so much deep hate that no way they can listen to you. Even though you try, if you don't want to force them by force, there's no peace. So what I want to say is this: South Sudan, your network need to stand with us in our leadership, so we can go to the continent, so to go to South Sudan and support it internationally, financially, media-wise. Because somehow we need to be in South Sudan this year. And we need the support of our brothers and sisters in the diaspora.
We stand with
to
you.
make a difference.
Yes.
And that's what we need from you. If you can do that with your network, your friendship in UK and anywhere, I think we're going to see a different Africa. Because I'm going to take this agenda to the African Union to let them know if you are with Africa or you are against Africans. We need to clean our African Union, to be honest. You cannot have two membership in the union. These are the things we need to work on. And I think we need to clean it up, and that decision have to be made by the African leader, head of the state, supported by the diaspora. If I don't get support from the diaspora, also my leadership is kind of fail. Because these Arabism, they have so much propagandists. And they are good with propagandists to destroy you, to overthrow you very quickly, and brought your opponents in very quickly. They are good because they have money. So you got to understand, the only hope is the diaspora community to stand with the leadership that serve African. And leadership is going to say, Arab League, you have to get out from this African Union if you don't care about Africans. Simple. Why should we be nice? And the reason why we've been enslaved because we are nice. We love everybody.
Yeah.
So this has to stop.
Yes, absolutely agree with you. Brother Bol, we've run out of time now. I think you've made it absolutely clear that we are the solution to the problem, and we need to stand with brave leaders like yourself who's prepared to go in there and be the difference that we want to see. So this platform stands with you, beloved. You have our full support and backing, and we look forward to hearing along the way what more we can do to support you. So family, you've heard all about South Sudan and some of the challenges that they're experiencing. But the good news is that, you know, the more we spotlight the problems, the more we talk about it, the more likely we are going to be in a position where we can do something about it. Sister Shanice, out of here for now. Thank you so much, BOL. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank
Sister.
you.
God bless.
We stand
Bye-bye.
with you. Peace and
Amen.
love. One
Thank
love.
you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.